Coming up this week on Sporting Journal Radio.
All the great success I've had this year, that one really hurts.
But that rack is exactly what I wanted. First ice, Joe, what's the first thing you're tying on?
Broadcasting on the Sporting Journal Radio Network, wherever you get your podcasts or watch on YouTube.
Fish on right now.
Well, we're here at the 2024 Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic, presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. And our guest now is Jeremy Smith. I fish, I hunt, and always will.
Just to look out for your everyday hunter, angler, and trapper that's out there.
A Fish Hunt Forever production. This is Sporting Journal Radio.
That's right. Welcome to the show. I'm Bret Amundson. Dan Amundson is back there in the home studio. What's up, Dan?
I'd like to make it known this is being done with like the most backup of backup equipment we have.
I mean, yeah, whatever. It's we're making it work because I am a long ways away. About a 14-hour drive when the highways were dry. If I tried to drive it today, it would probably take a lot longer than that.
You've got a Tundra, you'd be fine.
We got a pretty big snowstorm up here.
You can drive in anything in a Tundra, only if it's from Invergrove Toyota.
That's right. Absolutely. And we did, thankfully, I haven't had to drive for a couple of days because we've been up here deer hunting, and I punched a tag, Dan. It happened. I can actually kill a deer. It's true. Thank you very much. Last few years have been a little bit of a struggle. I need to come up to Trails End Outfitters more often, apparently, to get it done. And we'll talk more about my deer. Also, Danny Thompson is going to be on the show. He shot a deer up here this week, too. We got some pretty cool stories about these bucks. Actually, Danny, we're going to talk about him more than myself because he has had a wild year for whitetails this year. And we'll find out what he's done. You may have seen the pictures on social media, but he's got one more tag to fill, and we're going to talk to him about that. What he thinks his odds are of filling that one. I don't know, Dan. Do you think you think he'll get all 5?
Is he listening? Oh, that's not me. Is he listening right now?
Well, he's pretending not to be listening to me right now, but he's definitely listening.
Does he listen to the show? I mean, I know how his last Wisconsin deer hunt with you went.
Yeah, that was not a good one. When I filmed him in Wisconsin last year, it did not go very well. So
actually, were we even supposed to say that was in Wisconsin?
Yeah, it was okay. Yeah, okay. For sure. Yeah, you bet. So we'll talk to Danny coming up here in a little bit. Also, Joe Henry's going to join us from Lake of the Woods Tourism to talk about how things are looking up at Lake of the Woods and how early ice is starting to shape up. Dan, people are talking about ice fishing. They're ready.
It's coming.
Tag.
I don't think I've seen above freezing temps in the forecast now. So I think we are socked in. Fall has actually kind of arrived and winter is shortly behind.
I've got some pheasant hunting to do yet, so I'm not quite ready for hard water, but I know more people are excited about that than pheasant hunting right now. It's very cool. There's a couple sports shows coming up that we'll talk to Joe about and get some tips on if you're going up for early ice, what you should be packing in the truck coming up with Joe Henry. Though first, Dan, who are the sponsors this week on the show?
The official truck sponsor of Fish Hunt Forever is Invergrove Toyota. When looking for your new rig, head to Invergrove Toyota. Lake of the Woods Tourism. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital of the world. Plan a trip for this hard water season at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. OnX Hunt. See private land boundaries, recent imagery, offline maps, and Minnesota-specific hunt layers. Download the OnX Hunt app today. Tazen Lake Lodge. Catch world record lake trout and giant pike at Saskatchewan's Tazen Lake. Learn more at tazenlake.com. Devil's Lake, North Dakota. Catch it all at Devil's Lake. Prairie Sportsman, we've got new episodes coming up pretty soon. Well, you can watch episodes anytime at the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel. Haybell Heights Campground and Resort. Fish at Devil's Lake this winter. Fish out of a snow bear. And we've got a video coming from there pretty soon. Learn more at haybellheights.com and plan a trip to Guardian Eagle Resort for next summer. Go fish the Ontario waters of Guardian Eagle. Fly directly from the Twin Cities. You can learn all about that at guardianeagle.com or watch our video on the Fish Hunt Forever YouTube channel.
That's right. It's time right now for headlines.
Headlines.
All right, headlines brought to you by Invergrove Toyota. Get 1.99% APR for 72 months on a new 2024 Tundra. Right now, they also have 2024 Tacomas in stock there in inventory in Invergrove Heights. 3.99% on 24 Tacomas. And only for Sporting Journal Radio, we've got a Fish Hunt Forever deal for you. $250 off the lowest advertised price and an additional $500 for your trade-in. That's a great deal just for you. So visit InvergroveToyota.com/FHF. Fill out the form to claim your savings today. All right, one thing we didn't mention in the open, Dan, is there is talk about lowering the statewide walleye limit here in Minnesota.
It's so funny. Like That's been such a hot topic of discussion for walleye anglers in the state for so long. How many times have we gone to roundtables or min-fish summits, and it's been brought up. We've talked about it. I've had many conversations at a bar about it. Like, why don't we have it? Why is every other state like this? Why is our possession limit the way it is? And every time we've had a conversation with the Department of Natural Resources about it, it's been, no, nobody's really talking about this. It's not in the works, not for a while, and it really won't help anything, and blah, blah, blah. And wham, out of nowhere, I didn't hardly see anything about it till I opened an email about it, actually. I don't know where you heard about it. We were split. I think you might have even told me about it or something, but
I don't remember where I saw it either. It sounds like a Channel 9, Fox 9 interview or something like that.
That's the link I found, but
I don't know if it was in an interview with Brad Parsons, because I like Brad. And, people accuse us of liking the DNR a lot here on this show. And we do like the DNR most of the time, and we have some friends there. But we also try to call them out when we don't like what they're doing. And Brad sat there at the Minfish Summit last time, and somebody asked him about lowering the statewide limit to 4, and he just flat out said there's no one discussing this right now. There's no plans to lower the statewide limit. And I think what he did say in this article was that the legislature could lower it whenever. Like, we could wake up and they could have signed something in the legislature that lowers the limit without any,
like crossbows, just
like the crossbow situation. So you never know. But you'd think of Brad saying, "Hey, we're not discussing this. It's not a thing," that it wouldn't be a thing less than a year later that it's actually being discussed. So, to be honest, I don't care. Like, I have no problem lowering it to 4. We've talked about lowering limits in Minnesota. It's not bad. 6 is a lot for people that fish a lot. If you're someone that only fishes one time a year, or goes on one family trip or work trip or whatever, it's nice to get a couple extra fish to put in the freezer if you're going to eat them. But at the end of the day, my opinion on this topic has always been, just give the DNR the ability to manage lakes that need to be managed differently. If, like, a lot of lakes are 4 only already, maybe 1 over 20. Some lakes are 6. Lake of the Woods, 4 walleyes, 2 sauger. So as long as they have the ability to manage lakes independently, and it's not some blanket limit, that's what I'm in favor of. So if some lakes can support 6, like, how Red Lake, sometimes they have a big class of 16 inches or whatever it is, and they want to lower that population a little bit so the balance doesn't get out of whack. Well, as long as they can raise that up, some lakes can support 6 fish. But I don't think you need to have a 6 fish limit anywhere. So if they do lower it, I'm not going to be mad about it.
No, it's so funny how every time just anglers have brought it up, it's been just so quickly dismissed. And the other thing, again, I come back to the fact that not just Brad, I've heard it from other DNR, either whether it's spokesmen and women or fisheries biologists. I've heard it in other interviews that they said it really won't have any effect on fishing, because let's also be real. How many anglers actually can go out, besides in the spring when walleyes are a little easier to catch? How many guys are going out and catching all 6 fish in a day? That's not an easy thing to do.
Every time limit.
So it's just funny to me. Is this happening because anglers have finally, they're tired of having the conversation, so they're saying, okay, let's just do it. But in this article, that's not the reasoning. It's climate change and zebra mussels. So it's just, I don't know. It's just weird to me. It's like they want to do it, but they didn't want it to be our idea or the anglers of Minnesota's idea or something. And I don't know. I don't quite understand it. I'd love to sit down and have a conversation or listen to an explanation or further explanation on this whole deal.
Well, maybe the next Minfish Summit we'll hear a little bit more. Because I think is that in May every year?
Yeah, that was in May. The roundtable's coming up in January. I just registered for that. But I would actually like that discussion, because I know at the last Minfish Summit, Brad explained the reasoning behind the Mille Lacs limits. And while I still might not always agree with it or agree with their process, I can understand why they made the decisions they did after the explanation. So it's I'd love to hear more about it.
Speaking of that, Mille Lacs and Red Lake, they set winter limits.
They did. Forgive me for not having this pulled up.
Yeah, I didn't have it pulled up either. Sorry.
I can't type.
I think I don't think it was too surprising, though.
Mille Lacs is 2 fish. I know that. Mille Lacs is 2. Red Lake is 4. 2 walleye 18 to 20 inches on Mille Lacs, or 1 walleye 18 to 20 inches and one longer than 28 inches from Sunday, December 1st to Sunday, February 23rd, 2025. And
18 to 20, wasn't it 21 to 23 last year?
It sure might have been. Honestly, that's something I've been struggling to. It changes all the time. It's hard to keep track of, and I don't go there. So
interesting. All right. Well, so just be aware of some new limits coming up. And duck season for the central zone. Ducks, you were up north, Dan, and I'll ask you about this a little bit later, but you were up north. The duck season's closed in the north. The south and central zones are going to close this Sunday, which, again, it's Wednesday when we're recording this. I'm getting Snapchats from people in the central part of the state with big flocks of mallards. So at least I got a couple more days to try to hunt those, but of course there's going to be mallards around when the duck season is closed again this year. One good thing, the DNR, we'll do a positive DNR story for you today, though. Hashtag make duck season late again. We'll throw that in there first. But the DNR is waiving entrance fees to all 73 state parks and recreation areas the day after Thanksgiving, Friday, November 29th. The free park day is one of 4 days each year when the DNR waives the requirement for a vehicle permit for state parks. So this is a chance for you. If you don't go to state parks, you don't want to put a sticker in your car and pay the fee, whatever, which I have no problem paying that fee. You should be okay with it. But if you want to go check it out, see if it's for you, it'll be free on November 29th. And if you're looking for a world-class
state park, then though, that's a weird day to go to a state park, like weather-wise.
Well, I don't want to go to Best Buy or anything.
No, but like if people are outside, they're probably deer hunting or something. I don't know. Is somebody going to go hike around Split Rock on the day after? Maybe. Or Blue Mountain? I mean, I don't know.
People that aren't normally doing stuff in the outdoors, that might be exactly for it, because
I hope so.
Know that deer hunters are going to be in the woods somewhere else, whatever. It might be a nice chance to walk around a state park and not have a big crowd of people. But
I hope.
I don't know. If you're looking for a world-class cast and blast destination this fall, check out Devil's Lake, North Dakota, where they're catching walleyes. They're getting ready for early ice and getting those snow bears primed for the winter. Learn more at visit devilslakend.com. Catch it all at Devil's Lake. Plan your next trip to Devil's Lake today. All right. Well, I guess this is where we were going to talk about walleye limits. We already did that. Dan, you were up north. You were deer hunting, but I want to ask you about ducks. When you were up there, did you see any waterfowl at all?
I had like 4 mallards fly over my deer stand, but well, to be fair though, I was sitting in a tree most of the daylight hours, so I wasn't sitting by water. I was in the woods, right. So I can't really give you a first-hand waterfowl report up there because I just simply didn't see much water in the daylight. But I do know, talking to other folks up there, they've been very unimpressed by bird numbers, especially now that the season's closed. Sounds like Leech was about as stale as it ever could have been. Some guys got into some ducks and some back bays and had some cool hunts, but nothing like it should have been, or like it normally is, as far as golden eyes and other divers up on Leech when he casts those lakes.
How was your deer hunting experience?
I saw more ducks than deer. I saw 1 deer in 4 days of hunting, 10 minutes after legal shooting time on my last walk out on Sunday. So that wrapped up, and it was nice to sit in the woods, but there was not much moving until the last couple days, or like Sunday and Monday. It seemed like there was a lot of deer moving, just not where I was, but I know a couple deer got shot. And then the drive home Monday, I saw a couple absolute giant bucks middle of the day chasing does. So,
of course.
Yep.
All right. Well, that was going to be my question, because it's been interesting being up here in Saskatchewan, seeing just how much the rut is going here right now. I mean, most of the bucks we've been seeing this week have been chasing does, and a couple of them have just been real stupid, chasing those women around a little bit. And I know before I left last week, the rut was going pretty strong back in Minnesota. So kind of interesting to see how close together the ruts are, being this far north up here. So, and I know my trail cameras back home have been kind of quiet the last few days down there. So
yeah, I don't think
I still have a tag down there.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of movement happening the last week, but it should pick back up, especially now that it's cold.
Right. All right. Well, if you're looking for a walleye fishing trip, check out the Ontario waters of Guardian Eagle Resort. Bring the family and fish for walleyes and pike on 75,000 acres of private water. Fly direct from Minneapolis and be at the concrete runway at the lodge in 2 hours. You can also fly from Chicago. Learn more at guardianeagle.com and watch our video from there last summer at the Fish Hunt Forever YouTube channel. Well, Dan, it's been just an epic trip up here to Saskatchewan this week, and there's been some really cool deer shot. It's been a lot of fun seeing Barry Prawl and Trevor Montgomery from Tasman Lake Lodge came out, and they did some work with our deer and did some help putting us and putting some of the other guys on some deer this week. So it's been an epic trip, to say the least. We got some really cool footage that we're excited to share on the YouTube channel. So we're going to talk to Danny Thompson about his hunt. We'll talk about mine coming up here in just a couple of minutes on Sporting Journal Radio. And speaking of Tasman Lake Lodge in Northwest Saskatchewan, trophy lake trout and northern pike, plan a trip for this summer. If you want to catch some PBs, the lake trout are ridiculously huge. There's pike over 50 inches. Learn more at tasmanlake.com. And we'll come back with Danny Thompson right after this on Sporting Journal Radio.
It doesn't get much better than fresh perch and fresh walleye. If you're looking for an exciting winter fishing destination, come to Devils Lake, North Dakota. Haybale Heights Campground and Resort is on the ice with a fleet of snow bears, keeping you mobile and warm so you can stay on the roaming schools of fish. Haybale Heights on the east end of Devils Lake has knowledgeable guides, comfortable cabins, and their own lake access, making your trip as successful and stress-free as possible. To book your trip, go to haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com. All right, we're back on Sporting Journal Radio. Thanks for tuning in on the radio network, by demand, sportingjournalradio.com, or maybe you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify. Thank you very much. We are on location in Saskatchewan right now on the shores of Tobin Lake at Trails End Outfitters. Danny Thompson is joining me right now. We're up here deer hunting, Danny.
Yeah.
Shocker that you're deer hunting.
Yeah, it's been a good fall.
I mean, how much, I don't want to say the word, how much grief are your buddies giving you right now for the fall that you're having?
Oh yeah, it's coming in pretty hot and heavy right now, that's for sure.
If you're friends with him on social or follow him on social media at all, you know why we're saying that, because it has been you love to deer hunt. Like you spend a lot of time in the woods in the fall anyway. Have you ever had a year as successful as this one?
No, not at all. And here's the thing though. So yeah, this fall's been super successful, but I've never set myself up for a fall like this either. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I've never been to North Dakota, Saskatchewan, Wisconsin, South Dakota, all in the same year either. So
yeah, you're putting in some time.
Yeah.
And doing a little bit of traveling.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about all those other hunts here in a little bit, but let's just start where we're at right now, Saskatchewan. This is something, you came up and fished with us at Tasman a couple of years back, got to know Barry. And I think I remember when you found out that he had a whitetail place. And you were smashing big lake trout. We were having a great trip with Steve Panaz filming for Lake Commandos. And I think your focus shifted when you found out that he had a whitetail place here by Tobin.
Little bit. Yeah.
So that was kind of the beginning of your desire to come up here to Saskatchewan. You probably already wanted to come to Saskatchewan to hunt.
Well, here's the thing. If you're a hardcore whitetail hunter, and especially a kid like me growing up in the monster buck days and watching those videos, everybody dreams of coming to Saskatchewan and shooting one of those big chocolate horned, big bodied whitetails. And I just remember, watching those movies as a kid and thinking someday I got to get up there. And, luckily meeting Barry at Tasman Lake Lodge, I was able to make that possible.
It's cool. And I'm glad we were able to work it out where we could come up at the same time and film it. And actually, you've been doing a lot of self-filming.
Yeah.
So that makes my job a lot easier. I appreciate that. But that allowed me to sit in a different stand and film. And we were able to film in two different places. And some of those blinds, like the one I was in, was a little tight. We definitely both wouldn't have been able to get in there. And so we were able, and it just worked out. Like I think I sat for 4 days and you were on day 2.
Yeah.
And we both shot our deer on the same day. I got up a little bit earlier than you, so I had a couple extra days to hunt. But tell me about your first day and what you saw on the stand.
Well, I didn't really know what to expect, obviously never being up here. And it's pretty interesting hunting. You're basically in a blind, you're on the ground, and obviously it's big country, wide miles and miles and miles of bush country and, in the snow. And so you're hunting basically over kind of a bait pile that you're hoping these bucks will find and come into. And, the first day started out, I want to say watching some does and whatnot. And then I had a smaller buck come in, and then another smaller buck, and really seen quite a few deer that day. But what got me most excited is the deer were really chasing. I was able to watch a small buck really chase some does around. And so I knew that we had kind of timed that rut perfectly, and these big bucks are going to come check these bait sites. And then towards afternoon, I want to say that 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock hour on the first day, I actually seen the buck I ended up shooting come into the bait site. And, he's got one side that's real good. He's got another side that he's lacking a little bit. And I thought, boy, I can't do that on the first day. And then it kind of happened real quick. And then I kind of changed my mind, thought, well, maybe I will shoot him. But then he had already kind of made it out of the shooting lane and, trying to self-film, trying to watch these deer, trying to get your gun ready. I mean, you really got to make that decision quick.
It's a lot. And people talk about, oh, you're hunting over bait, whatever. And, obviously you can't do that everywhere. So you come up here and you have to.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're in a high fence. It's not like these deer are just hanging out and they're just going to walk in and just munch on hay and you're going to have the pick of the litter and you're going to be able to shoot whatever you want. I mean, the big ones, these bucks, when they come in, they may not even come to the bait. They come to the area because the does are here. Like the does are the bait for them. And they may not stick around. Like they're just coming in and checking scents, checking scrapes, things like that. And they're moving on. So, a lot of guys will take a little nap or they'll, whatever, not paying attention. And you may miss your opportunity for one of those bucks to come through.
Yeah, they come through quick, which, is funny actually, and how I ended up even shooting my buck. But I mean, yeah, they come through really quick for sure. So
that you saw that one. And when we came and picked you up and we came out of the woods there, you told me about it. And what did I say to you? I said, don't pass up a deer on day one that you'd shoot on the last day of the trip.
Yeah.
So day two comes around and we just have about a minute and a half here to kind of talk about it. So day two comes around, you're sitting in the stand and you're seeing a few deer, but you're trying to get a little artsy with your camera.
Well, I was impressed with all of your fancy shots of squirrels and birds the day before. So I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to film this squirrel because he kept, running around out in front of me and the snow was falling and just such a beautiful setting when you're sitting out there. And so I turned my camera on and kind of get, facing the camera and trying to move to get a shot of the squirrel. And I look in the viewfinder of the camera and here there's a big buck standing right down my shooting lane. And things escalated quickly for sure.
Now, did you think if you would have seen that same deer the day before that you saw the day before that you would shoot it on day two, or were you still on the fence?
I think I kind of had made my mind up. If he came back, I'd shoot him.
Sure.
And the funny part is, like I said, he's got one side where he's kind of missing a brow tine and a G3, but he came in the other side, and his other side looks real good. And so I honestly didn't even realize it was the same buck when I ended up shooting him.
I mean, he looks completely different standing one way than standing the other way.
Yeah.
So he comes in, he's quartering away a little bit.
Yep.
You get the camera. You're making sure the camera's recording.
Yep. Well, I got multiple cameras, so I'm trying, the camera luckily was on, started recording on the main camera. Then I'm trying to set up my other, cameras on the inside the blind there. So getting those all set up, then you got to get your gun up.
Right.
And then I knocked the camera, so then I had to reset the camera, make sure everything's good. And then, he was quartering hard, but he's kind of quartering back towards a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And, I'm shooting a big caliber rifle at such short distance. So I was able to sneak it in there and make a really good shot.
Well, you got him, and we're going to talk more about that. Your other deer that you shot, because you shot a couple of tanks this year. You've had some really nice deer. And I'll tell you about mine, too, when we come back on Sporting Journal Radio.
Sick of eating tag soup? It's time to own your odds this fall with OnX Hunt, the GPS hunting app trusted by millions of hunters. Now you'll have access to nationwide public and private land ownership information, waypoints, optimal win for each stand, tracks, and much more. All at your fingertips. Go to onxmaps.com/hunt and use code SJR20 at checkout to receive 20% off your membership. That's code SJR20.
We're back, Sporting Journal Radio. It's Bret Amundson at Tobin Lake Trails and Outfitters. We're up here in Saskatchewan doing some whitetail hunting. Want to thank Tourism Saskatchewan for supporting us on this trip. And Danny Thompson from Garmin is with us. And we probably should talk a little bit of ice fishing, but let's talk whitetail hunting first, Danny. We'll see if we have time for ice fishing on this podcast. But we just mentioned we just got up to the point where you took the shot, and then you actually had a Garmin InReach. You were able to tell Barry, hey, shot one, and then you just kind of have to wait for them to come out. And what was interesting with my buck and your buck, like when I climbed down to check for blood, because I want to make, I mean, I was pretty sure that I smoked them, and looking at the camera, it looked like I did, but I didn't find blood right at the impact site, which with my 30-06, usually there's some blood there. And he didn't bleed right away. And mine was, when I look back at the video, he's actually kind of quartering towards me a little bit. So I went in right behind the front shoulder, but I came out a little back. So I'm guessing something kind of got plugged up in there right away. And it wasn't until he took off running into the bush that he, kind of knocked something. There it is right there. You see him kick, and figured he had him pretty good. And then, we're going to see something. Yeah, right there. Anyway, I finally found blood up the track.
Yeah.
And then it dried up. And then when Barry and Trevor came to help me track it, we just did a big loop, and we had found that deer ran out to the left, ran way north, lost the blood, and then there's a lot of deer around. So all of a sudden you're like, gosh, is that his track? Is that his track? You're trying to look for the bigger tracks, because he was the bigger deer in the area. Lost them, and then we just started doing circles. And then Barry found him. He had circled all the way back to the other side where he came in, and it was piled up 30 yards away. Like, he ended up not far away. Yeah. And that's kind of what your buck did. Yeah. Almost the same thing.
Yeah, and it's funny, it's just so thick there in that brush too, that like just finding blood. I mean, I literally, what did I stop? 6 feet from where we ended up getting on the blood trail.
Right.
And we had already walked through that part, but it's just so thick. I mean, unless you really step right on it, it's hard to find it at first. So,
well, what was really neat about our two deer is just how dark the racks are. And I always thought that was a diet thing. They're living in the woods, browsing on branches or whatever. They're not eating corn like our deer back home. But what it is that they're rubbing on pine trees.
Yeah.
And they're just mashing their brains into these trees, and they're getting sap and all this stuff in there. And that's where that dark color comes from.
Yeah. Well, and that's what you come to Saskatchewan for, is in big bodies and dark colored racks like that.
Yeah, it was real cool. But let's talk about, because you stopped in North Dakota. There's mine right there if you're watching this. Just how cool. Like, I'd seen that deer on the trail camera. Barry had a picture of it the day before during the day. So I knew he was daylighting. And I knew, like, he's not a giant deer. He's a big deer. If you look at that shoulder, you can see how muscular he is. And his neck was just all swelled up. Like, he was a beautiful deer. And the rack, I think, it's almost. I
mean, he's almost black. He's so dark. Yeah.
He's kind of tall. He's not super wide, but he's super dark. And I think he's just like, it's almost perfectly symmetrical. Yep. He's a real beautiful deer. And when I saw the picture of it, I told Barry, I'm like, I'm going to shoot that deer. As long as you're cool with me shooting that deer. If he comes out, I'm going to shoot that deer. And I'd been in the stand. I'd set the camera up, got it focused, and just had loaded my gun. And I had one little buck, in front of me, kind of screwing around. And all of a sudden, boom. That deer jumps out and is standing right in front of me, and he's only halfway down the shooting lane. So I had to change the focus on the camera to make sure I got him in focus. And I still didn't get him completely in focus, but close enough.
Yep.
And then I had to grab my gun, and he's just staring at me in the blind the whole time. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to get my gun up and shoot this deer. Like, he's going to be gone. He's going to bust me. He's going to be gone. And thankfully I got the shot off and I was able to get it. But that rack is exactly what I wanted, was a nice, beautiful deer with a big, dark chocolate rack like that. And that's what we did. But you stopped on your way up here in North Dakota and did a little bit of hunting and shot a beauty.
Yeah. So when I was kind of planning my season out, I knew I'd be driving up here to Saskatchewan. So I thought, well, I might as well stop in North Dakota on the way up. And I had a buddy that had an opportunity for me to be able to hunt there. So, I swung through North Dakota on the way to Saskatchewan. I was actually able to shoot the biggest buck of my season, and possibly the biggest buck of my life. He's, kind of in that higher 60s range for a buck, and just a beautiful big body North Dakota whitetail, and just an excellent hunt. I ended up sitting there for about a day and a half till I was able to shoot that guy.
A day and a half.
And I mean, what an absolutely beautiful buck, and a way to kind of start my trek on the way up here to Saskatchewan. And honestly, the last over a 9-day span, I was able to shoot a great buck in Minnesota. And then I was able to stop in North Dakota, shoot a great buck there, come to Saskatchewan and shoot a great buck here. Yeah, there's my Minnesota buck. And, beautiful buck. I actually had that buck the night before when I was bow hunting at about 70 yards, but just not close enough for the bow. And so kind of went in with the same game plan for the next day with the gun, and 11 o'clock in the morning, opening day, he come right out. So
So that's 3 deer in a pretty short time. So that's pretty efficient hunting. It's so much different than your South Dakota hunt because that one took so long to fill.
I think I spent more time planning for my South Dakota trip than I did, actually hunting. And that was cool because, South Dakota has such an early archery opener. So I was able to head out to South Dakota right away there in the first part of September. And, had cameras up. I mean, the thing is, I put a lot of work into these whitetail hunts, and this year it just kind of the plan worked, and I was able to harvest whitetails quickly. In reality, it could have been the first opening sit of all of my bucks this year if I would have shot the Saskatchewan the first time I seen him, the Saskatchewan buck. But South Dakota headed out there, and I think I went and set up my ground blind. Did a conference call, went back out and sat in the blind for, hour or so and was able to shoot that deer and skin it up and pack it up and head back home after one day.
That's insane. It was in velvet too?
Full velvet.
Oh,
I've never shot a velvet whitetail like that. So, heading out to the Dakotas and whitetails in velvet, I think that's just a whole nother animal in itself, and was such a great time. I was able to shoot that one actually with my bow, which was nice.
No. How hot was it?
Hot. It was in the 90s.
Oofta.
I was pretty warm in that ground blind night, but luckily there was a pretty good wind, so.
And then, so you're traveling a lot. You've got, what do you call it? The Whitetail Mobile Command?
My Mobile Whitetail Command Center.
Yeah.
So I took my enclosed trailer and I've got her set up for deer hunting. I've got a receiver hitch on the side of it, so I can actually hang whitetails from the side of that trailer.
Oh, nice.
Lights all around it. I run off of 2, Amped Outdoors batteries, to power all my lights and my heat. I got a Chinese diesel heater in there, and then, my e-bike fits right inside there. So it works out pretty well for all these whitetail trips.
And you bring a freezer along too.
Well, I do now.
Oh, you didn't have one in South Dakota?
No,
okay.
No, and I should have, but now I've got deep freeze in there. So, and actually, I got all my North Dakota meat waiting for me. So on my way home, I'll be able to put everything in the chest freezer in my trailer, head home.
So talk about that setup. How are you're powering that freezer off with the generator?
Well, right now it's parked at a friend of mine's place, so I've got shore power on that trailer, so I can actually plug in. But I do also have the ability to plug in off of battery power on that thing too. So.
All right, and you sleep right in there, don't you?
Oh yeah, I got a twin bed in there. I mean, it's comfortable.
How long of a trailer is it?
14-footer.
Oh, that sounds like a lot to get into a 14-footer.
But it's a good size when building a trailer like that, because I can back into these field roads and small spots, and actually where I camped in South Dakota, it was pretty difficult to get to, and so having that smaller trailer is actually kind of a benefit.
Well, that's an incredible, and you still have a Wisconsin tag.
Yeah. And actually, I've got my own property in Wisconsin. I've got some great bucks there this year, and I'd have my 5th buck right now, actually. But I missed one in Wisconsin at about 12 yards. I actually hit a limb with my bow on my target buck.
12 yards, Danny.
Yeah. And that's probably, of all the great success I've had this year, that one really hurts.
I bet. Is that one still alive?
He's still alive. He's running around. I'm getting pictures of him here while I'm sitting up in Saskatchewan, and, gun season opens there on Saturday. So there's a chance I can get after him, but, show season starts real soon. So we're getting down to the wire here for me.
Well, we don't have a lot of time left, just about 2 minutes left here. And, so I wanted to, because that Wisconsin property, I've been out there, you've done a lot of work to it. That's really where you in your spare time, you're working or thinking about deer, and you're working on properties. That's really what you enjoy doing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly think I enjoy the planting food plots and running trail cameras and doing all that kind of stuff, bringing my kids there to shed hunt and whatnot. I think I like that more than even shooting the deer, you know. But
I talk about it. It's like waterfowl hunting. It's like setting a decoy spread. It's tricking the animal, and to me, there's so much more challenge in that than just pulling a trigger on something, right? So, being able to take a look at a property and design it and say, okay, I'm going to do a water hole here. I'm going to put a stand here. I'm going to put this food plot that does this right here, and the deer are coming from this bedding area. Like being able to put your plan, have a vision for a property, build it, and see it come to fruition, and quicker than you expected it to.
Yeah, honestly. That property, you were there last year. We struggled even to shoot a doe on that property. And it's a great property, but I put a lot of work into it. I've got some food plots on there now, a bunch of water holes and better stand locations. And within 1 year, I mean, look at the quality of bucks already calling that place home. So, you know, it'd be great to see what that place produces here in the coming years for sure.
Well, Danny, if people were thinking about a Saskatchewan trip and they were like, hey, you know, gosh, how was your trip up there? What are you going to tell them? Why should people come up here to Trails End?
Well, you know, the awesome part about Trails End Outfitters is just the, you know, the cabin is beautiful place to stay. Yeah. The stands are comfortable. You know, it wasn't very cold the days I hunted, but we're looking outside at a blizzard right now, and there's heat in the stands. They're comfortable stands to sit in, and you see deer. You know, there's bucks coming in and deer to watch. So it is a, you know, great place to come and really, you know, have that Saskatchewan experience, I guess.
Yeah, well, and Keith and Greg are here too. Greg shot the unicorn, real nice buck.
Yeah, that was the
and
big
then
one.
Keith had moose come in to his site, and he had a moose laying down in front of him, which is awesome. And we should mention that your dad is here with you too.
Yeah.
Which he needs to shoot a deer. Lee, you need to shoot a deer in the next couple of days, because that would just be icing on the cake.
Absolutely.
All right, Danny, it's been a fun trip up here. I'm glad you made it up. Congratulations on all the deer, and good luck in Wisconsin.
Thank you.
All right, Joe Henry has a Lake of the Woods fishing report when we come back on Sporting Journal Radio.
Lake of the Woods, the walleye capital of the world, is calling out to you. From the northwest angle to the South Shore and Rainy River, this is the Midwest's #1 ice fishing destination. Walleye, sauger, perch, northern pike, and eelpout. The fishing on Lake of the Woods is like a world of its own. Experience the most amazing fishing through one of the many full-service resorts featuring heated fish houses, ice transportation, meal plans, and sleeper fish house options. For more information, go to lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
All right, now we're going to talk to Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism. Joe, I'm sure people are starting to chomp at the bit now that we're getting behind deer hunting, and the conversation is starting to turn to ice fishing.
Well, so I'll tell you this. So number one, you know, obviously we have some deer hunters whose season's over. We have other deer hunters who are still hunting, but it's going along now. And just, you know, chronologically, if you're an outdoors person in Minnesota that hunts and fishes and such, the next step after deer hunt is what? Ice fishing. And it just so happens that we actually got some snow this week. So between the snow, looking at the forecast coming up, we got teens, Bret. We got teens in the forecast. You know what that means? That means that's going to be forming ice in different places of Minnesota. And I'll tell you what, that's that if that doesn't get people jacked up who like to ice fish, I'll tell you something. Mother Nature is going to produce for us this year, and we're going to have one heck of an ice fishing year across the state. I can tell you that. Certainly, Lake of the Woods, man. We're ready. Our resorts are getting ready. Our outfitters are getting ready. Fish houses, light ice rigs. They're putting new fish houses into play. They're pulling old fish houses out. They're repainting. They're fixing up some things. They're putting the high facts on runners. I mean, there's always something to do if you're an ice fishing resort up at Lake of the Woods.
We do have some cold weather in the forecast, but traditionally it's around, a week and a half in December that you start ice fishing up there, historically?
So that's when we get day houses out. So what'll happen first, Bret, is in maybe the end of November, maybe the beginning of December, but what happens first, the very first thing, is on some of those back bays, specifically like Bostic Bay and Zippel Bay, some of the resorts and outfitters will get some spear houses out on those backwaters, and you'll be able to go spear pike. That's the first thing. Then we'll get an outfitter or two that'll open up some ice trails. You know, we got resorts that own airboats that go out on the ice to check that early ice, so they're not in peril. And what they'll do is they'll start marking trails. They'll start clearing trails of snow so that cold can penetrate that ice faster and grow thicker ice. And what they'll do is the first thing you'll hear is, hey, so whichever resort or whichever outfitter, open up an ice trail. You can bring ATVs, snow machines, and collapsible fish houses. And then normally about December 10th, give or take, based on Mother Nature, our resorts will start getting day houses out. That's kind of the norm. And then what they normally do there is they'll take you out to the fish house to ensure safety with what they call light ice rigs. A light ice rig is like a Geo Tracker or a Suzuki Samurai pulling a people hauler trailer. It's in like a glorified snowmobile trailer that's enclosed with suspension on it, and it's got a heater in it. So it's a real nice, efficient way to get people out to heated fish houses for that early ice bite. And then as the ice thickens, pretty soon you'll hear that, hey, so-and-so has sleeper houses out now, a little bit bigger fish house. Then you hear about, they're allowing SUV travel on this road. And then they'll say, okay, then it's a light pickup, and then it's a heavier pickup, then it's a full-size pickup. And then you can hear about the roads. Instead of the road going out just a couple of miles, the road's out 5 miles now off of Pine Island or off the South Shore or whatever. So all of that is kind of the progression based on ice condition. But here's the thing, Brett, and we've talked about it before. The nice thing about it is that if you go up to Lake of the Woods and work with one of our resort outfitters, they're monitoring that ice daily. So they're going to keep you on a trail as long as you can stay on that trail or not get too tempted to go off into no man's land where we don't know ice conditions. As long as you stay on that trail, you're going to be in good shape.
Let's talk about this, Joe. If somebody is going up there for some of that early ice, and maybe they're going to an outfitter or a guide, what are you going to tell them that they should start off with? What are you going to try if you're up there first ice, Joe? What's the first thing you're tying on?
1-2 punch. It's a 1-2 punch, a jigging line on one. The second line for ice fishing would be a live minnow under a bobber about a half a foot to a foot off the bottom. And what I would do is I would start out with, honestly, a couple of things. Number one, I would say Tom's Tackle stop sign. I like that gold with glow red. That's one of my go-to jigging spoons with either a piece of minnow head or a piece of minnow tail on it. Another one I love is that Northland Macho Minnow. Another one I love is that clam flutter spoon, the leech flutter spoon they call it. Those are 3 go-tos, And then as far as the dead stick goes, honestly, a plain hook. I just like a red plain hook with a split shot above it, and you can certainly put in a medium-sized, almost like a oversized crappie jig. Not a real big one, but in a glow white or a glow red or a gold, and put that minnow back behind the dorsal and put that under a bobber about a half a foot off, and then keep that dead stick moving. Jig it once in a while, keep it moving, lift it up slow, let it fall down and free fall. That'll get any fish in the area's attention. And then that jigging spoon, jig, let it sit in the strike zone. Jig, let it sit in the strike zone. That fish is looking at it and not popping. You got limited time to get that walleye to eat. So what you do is you shake it like heck, and then hold it in the strike zone. If that doesn't produce, drop it in the mud and lift it off. Drop it in the mud, lift it off. If that doesn't produce, shake that sucker like heck and start reeling it up like it's a escaping minnow. A lot of times it's the thrill of the chase. Those walleyes will chase it up. When that fish is coming up, don't stop. Keep it coming, keep it coming, keep it coming, keep it coming. And that fish is going to have to make a decision as that thing gets up in the water column. Am I going to whack that thing or am I going to go back down? If it goes back down, take another shot at him and get him again. But you got to keep them coming up. And by doing those things on every single fish you see on your electronics, you're going to catch more fish.
I know a lot of times these sports shows have seminar speakers, and you do that a lot. They got the big St. Paul Ice Show coming up. Are you going to be speaking of that, or are you just going to have a Lake of the Woods tourism booth there?
Yeah, so the St. Paul Ice Fishing Show, in fact, I'll look at my calendar. It's actually the 6th, 7th, and 8th of December, that Friday, Saturday, Sunday of December. That's down in, of course, at right next to the XL Energy Center and that River Center there. I'm not going to be giving seminars there, but I'm going to have the Lake of the Woods tourism booth. We'll be handing out visitor guides. Usually we give away an ice fishing trip there. And we also talk ice fishing. People might say, hey, I'm bringing up my wife. Where's a good place to stay? Hey, what if I want to go to the Northwest Angle? What are my options? Hey, what are my options for a nice sleeper fish house up at Lake of the Woods? Whatever. What are the limits again? Can you remind me? How does a guy spear up there, these pike? Whatever the case might be, happy to talk to you about them and just give good information. And it's just a nice resource. Plus, you get all the tackle dealers and celebrities, and they do put on a good show. So this is the largest ice fishing show in North America, and it's a fun day. I tell you, people that go down there, they usually make a day of it. They normally go out and grab something to eat when they're down in the cities, and it's just a fun deal. Yeah, for sure. Somebody I was writing about it or something the other day, and it said it's the biggest ice fishing show in the world or something like that. And it might be, I say North America, but it's probably the largest, in the world. And the other thing I'd say too, Brett, is one of the booths that's going to be at the St. Paul Ice Fishing Show you might want to check out is Min Fish. Min Fish is going to be there. In fact, right now they got a huge ice fishing auction. If you need some ice fishing stuff. So Min Fish, by the way, for people that don't know, it stands for Minnesota Fishing. It's an organization that promotes quality sport fishing in the state of Minnesota. It's been instrumental in the last 2 years, driving over $110 million towards sport fishing efforts in Minnesota. Everything from beefing up our stocking, our hatcheries and stocking efforts of walleyes in the state of Minnesota. Everything from public boat ramps, boat accesses, shore fishing opportunities, getting kids into fishing. It's been a very, very positive organization for fishing in Minnesota. And the auction has everything from Lake of the Woods trips. Bret, Fish and Hunt Forever / Sporting Journal Radio. You guys donated a real nice media package, so thank you for that. There's an ice castle there. There's fishing stuff. There's augers. There's just a whole bunch of stuff. Plus, it's going to a good cause. This money will go to the lobbying efforts at the state legislature to drive more quality sport fishing, more money towards quality sport fishing in the state of Minnesota. It's a good gig. If you need some stuff anyway, it might be a nice opportunity for you to check it out.
Is it open now?
The auction's open? Yep, it's going to go for a few weeks, and just go to the MinFish website. That is mn-fish.com, and it'll take you. There's a link on it to the auction.
We're happy to be a part of it, and I'm glad MinFish is doing what it's doing right now. And I know the organization has been around for a few years, but I feel like COVID just kind of put the brakes on everything. And post-COVID now, there's been this new energy with the organization. And I know you're on the board now, and Mark Holston is the executive director, and he's been a driving force. And what has really been key is getting the lobbying efforts and bringing on that lobbyist. And the more money we can have for a lobbyist to be a voice for anglers in Minnesota at the Capitol and talking to these legislators in politics speak. I don't know what I'm trying to say there, but speaking the language of politicians and knowing how the system works. We'll call it a game, whatever you want to call it, but knowing how politics work and having somebody that is familiar with the system and the politicians and the people and being at the Capitol, having somebody like that. And I know Mark was involved in politics as well. So having Mark and a lobbyist together, they've already gotten quite a bit done. And to be able to have that strength and have that voice looking out for anglers in Minnesota, it's so vital to protect these outdoor traditions that we have here in Minnesota. So I'm more than happy to be a part of MinFish, and I'm a lifetime member now. And I encourage anybody watching this or listening to this, go join MinFish and help the cause, help fight for our rights as anglers in Minnesota. So good luck with the auction.
Everything you said is so true. I saw Governor Walz speak at one of the MinFish summits, and I'll say this. MinFish was instrumental in getting Governor Walz involved and educating him. And Governor Walz said to this group, he said, when I found out that sport fishing in Minnesota, the industry drives more than $4 billion of commerce and economy in the state of Minnesota alone, that's more than the Mayo Clinic. That got my attention. He also made the comment that when he toured one of the largest hatcheries in the state down in the metro area, he said this thing was falling apart. Other governors had kicked the can down the road. He said, you know what? We're to the point now where we got a surplus of money. We're going to take that surplus of money. It's a one-time appropriation, but we're going to put that, a good portion of it anyway, towards MinFish and towards sport fishing in Minnesota. And he held up to that, and the money is in the hands of the DNR right now, and being spent on some of the things that are important initiatives for us in Minnesota fishing.
Absolutely. I think it's so important. And Joe, before we let you go here, I want to talk just briefly about this. It's the first annual 2025 Minnesota Sportsman Show. So Senecos are putting on a new show. It's going to be in Shakopee at Canterbury Park, January 17th to the 19th. I'm excited about it. We're going to be out there, and I believe you're actually speaking at that one, aren't you?
Yeah, I am speaking of that one. Yep. We'll be talking about, different aspects of walleye fishing and stuff. And that's going to be a neat one because it's in the metro, yet it's outside of the metro. And that's going to be a really good show.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. And I think we're going to have some of those guys on to talk about that show in the future. Otherwise, mnresortshow.com has got all the information for that. And Joe, if you want to plan a trip to Lake of the Woods, get up there for early ice or late ice or middle ice or sometime this winter, what should they do for more information?
Check out our website, and that is lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.